Welcome to Cycling Fashion Week, the only global podcast purely focused on cycling style, fashion, lifestyle, aesthetics, drip. I am your host, Alex. We are back after, I would say, what was a relatively long hiatus for us. We are definitely less regular than we were about releasing these podcasts, but this was a long hiatus. But we are back, and I am joined this week by my co-hosts Warren and Skyler, the Crid Dog, back in business, back in the saddle after a little break. Warren and Skyler, welcome back to Cycling Fashion Week. How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah, I'm doing well.
You are firmly in the midst of cross season. As our listeners know, I do not partake in cross. I am not a cross believer, but Warren and Skyler are in the midst of the cross season. How is it going this year?
I mean, not terrible, but not great. We'll see. I'm actually headed to the Trek Cup in Waterloo in 2 days' time from when I'm recording this, where if any of our listeners are cross fans, you will know that it's the only World Cup in the US now left. So some of the bigger names in the cyclocross race scene will be there, especially in the women's field. We got pretty much all the big names except for Marianne Vos and Lucinda Brand are all going to be there racing on the Sunday. So that's pretty exciting. Obviously, Van der Poel and Wout aren't there because they don't need to bother. And then I will also be racing the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday amateur races. So if any of our listeners happen to be there, look out for me. I will be towards the back of the pack in the 130-person field in the Cat 4, I'm sure. I'm looking forward to that, even though I have to acknowledge that it's on the Trek headquarters, so that's a shame. There'll probably be a lot of Trek bikes there.
Your favorite brand by far.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Skyler?
Yeah, I was coming off a pretty busy road season, and September was super exciting with racing. So taking a little bit of a backseat for cross this kind of season. So just doing some of the local stuff. It's been fun. I am still not good at cross. I've taken some face plants and some big wipeouts, and yeah, it's been good.
Skyler, you say you're not good at cross. You won the race at our weekly practice last week. So
there was no barriers.
There was a lot of turning and some off camber. So
problem with cross is it's not in a straight line. But I mean, look, today's episode is a bit of a special episode. We went back to the VIP section, the press section at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal in early September, and we recorded a lot of interesting interviews while we were there. So today's episode is going to be focused on that. We talked to a number of brands. We talked to Argon 18. We talked to Specialized. We talked to Rubber and Road. That was an interesting interview. We will have that later on in the podcast. But one thing that was interesting at that weekend was there was an amateur crit there, and we went to see Skyler race in the crit. Skyler, what was it like having a big crowd of fans encouraging you, including Tony, myself, and our two daughters who were there looking at you being inspired?
It was amazing. It was, I think it was 15 laps. So every single time we came through, I had the best fan section by far, which was very, very exciting. It was so nice to see your daughters. They were lovely and so cute. And yeah, the whole thing was super exciting. I love having fans. I love having my crowd cheering and everything, and it was a super fun environment, especially with before the race there was some of the world tour riders were also just riding the crit course, so it was pretty cool, seeing some bike heroes.
Did Michael Woods crash while pre-riding the crit course?
No, I didn't see him do that.
So it was a pretty cool weekend in Montreal at the pro race. Again, we will have those interviews later on in the podcast. So we spoke to Bruno Langlois from Velo Cartel. He is the shop is so iconic that I call him Bruno Cartel. But no, Bruno Langlois, former Canadian champ, owner of Velo Cartel, one of the coolest shops here in Canada. We talked about the state of the market, what brands are interesting at the moment. We spoke to Marc-Olivier Hardy from Argon 18, which is a brand that we haven't really talked about. They've been involved in the pro peloton for many years. So we talked about bike design, talked about dropped seat stays. Why do dropped seat stays exist? Had a bit of an argument with him about that. We spoke to Specialized as well, which is another brand we don't cover very much here on the podcast. We tend to focus more on the small brands, but obviously Specialized, mammoth brand in cycling. So we talked to them about their current lineup, what they have going. And we had the interview with Max Davis from Rubber and Road. We felt that the dust had settled a little bit from the earlier Rubber and Road controversy this year. And we talked about the history of the brand, their design, their manufacturing process. But we also asked him to weigh in on the controversy. To his credit, I think he actually addressed it very well, recognized where they went wrong, put some context around the incident, and moved on. So I thought it was a good interview. And we also talked to Antoine Duchesne, who is a former pro rider for FDJ, Française des Jeux, newly retired after a year. So we talked about life as a retired pro rider. So that's coming later on today's podcast. But before we do that, we're going to comment on some of the news, because there's obviously been a lot of stuff going on in the cycling fashion and cycling market overall since we've last recorded one of these podcasts, since we've been having a bit of a break. But obviously, we're not going to talk about everything that happened, but there's a few things that we picked that we were going to talk about. So the first one is Warren's carbon adventures. I think we need to give listeners an ending to Warren's carbon saga, and maybe recap a little bit, Warren, your history with carbon before telling how the story ends.
We're going to close the loop on this story, I think, finally. For those that don't remember or missed the episodes where I talked about it, about a year ago, almost to the day, I bought my first ever carbon frame specifically to race cyclocross on last year. And it was replacing a steel frame that I was riding, which was a great feeling bike, but was a bit too big. And I wanted something a bit like, quote unquote, performance driven as I've been sold that carbon is. And so I bought a carbon frame, the Haka MX from Ibis Cycles, it actually has a pretty strong cyclocross pedigree, despite Ibis being a mountain bike brand. Anyway, I had that frame, did a few races on it last year, but not very many. And then early this year in April or June or May or June, I don't remember, I discovered a crack in the one of the seat stays, took it to my mechanic. He confirmed it was a crack. The frame wasn't rideable. I sent photos. I tried to get the frame warranted because they have a 7-year frame warranty. They might have actually extended it. Anyway, my initial claim of warranty was rejected because it looked like it was a crack from impact. And the only way to remedy that is to send the frame back for inspection, and maybe you'll get a warranty frame. And I didn't want to do that because I'm already out $3,000 on the frame, and it would have cost several $100s to ship from Canada to California for inspection. Anyway, so I think that's probably where we last left our listeners. Was I threw Ibis in the canal because they weren't going to warranty my frame, and then once again we generally threw carbon bikes in the canal because I had that bike for 9 months before it cracked. I put 600 kilometers on it. Anyway, I threw Ibis in the canal, and I kind of thought that was it. I bought a new standard cyclocross frame to replace it because it's aluminum. Far less worried about it cracking after 7 rides on it or whatever. And anyway, my mechanic had a genius idea to cut the seat stays off of my Ibis frame to send for inspection rather than having to spend however many. It was a minimum of like $250 to send it to Ibis. So we did that. Ibis, to their credit, was okay with me doing that. They didn't say, no, you have to send the whole frame. So I sent off the seat stays, and then a couple weeks later, I found out that I did in fact qualify for a warranty frame. It turns out the seat stay didn't meet the required thickness or something. I don't remember the exact wording, But basically the seat say was shown to be not correct. And so they sent me a warranty frame, which arrived quite quickly. I will also give them credit for that. I didn't have to pay for shipping, and I've already sold it to not quite pay for the standard, but close enough. Because, I didn't want to, I'm obviously not going to ask close to retail price on a warranty frame because you're not getting the warranty itself with that. Anyway, it's sold surprisingly fast, I want to say. And yeah, that's where we're at. So I suppose Ibis is out of the Canal. I don't know. Carbon definitely isn't, but Ibis as a company, they did warranty the frame. I did feel like I kind of had to jump through a few hoops. So maybe they're at like the surface of the canal now. They're like bobbing on the surface of the canal.
It sounds like they made it right for you, Warren.
They did, but I did have to, do a fair bit for them to make it right. Like cut off the chain stays of my bike, which I wouldn't have even thought to do.
Were they dropped, the seat stays?
No, they were not.
Well, we like our seat stays thick here on Cycling Fashion Week, and if they're not thick, we're not, in the canal. In terms of faulty gear, there's another topic I want to talk about today. This is actually a great segue. So anyway, we closed the loop on Warren's carbon story. I mean, I don't think neither me or Warren are riding carbon anytime soon after this story. Again. I guess Skyler, she's into performance. She's into riding fast. So I think Skyler will keep riding carbon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's good. We're not, we have diversity of opinion on this podcast, but this leads me to a segue on the second topic I wanted to talk about today, which is it's a few weeks old now. Again, we've been on a bit of a hiatus, so we're catching up on a lot of this stuff. But the Shimano recall of Ultegra and Dura-Ace crank sets that was announced a few weeks ago. So I find this one very interesting. I thought that this was a bit of a niche Instagram phenomenon, and I was following the Instagram account at Thanks Shimano, where one guy was posting pictures of all these broken Shimano cranks, and I just thought it was becoming a bit of a meme. I think the account had only something like 3,000 followers, or it wasn't that big, but I had sort of paid attention to this, and I wasn't sure how big of a phenomenon it really was, or if it was just kind of a small niche Instagram meme.
I definitely heard of this issue before.
Yeah, so then it came out that Shimano had issued a recall for Dura-Ace and Ultegra cranks that I think had been manufactured between like 2019 and 2021 or something like that. So right in the peak of cycling cultural relevance. This was interesting to me because I actually purchased a bike during those years, which was my steel Marinoni, but which has Shimano Ultegra on it. And my Ultegra crankset, which is very ugly. I mean, we've talked about that before. The Shimano Ultegra and Shimano Dura-Ace cranksets that were manufactured between those years are not only now proven to be faulty, but they're some of the ugliest cranks in the history of cranks. But I was concerned that my crank was going to be recalled. I checked the serial number on it, and I actually dodged the recall. However, Tony, our co-host, who also purchased a bike during those years, which actually goes to show that the bike industry really did boom during those years. But Tony's serial number was unfortunately one of the recalled ones, and I think he's still dealing with it at the moment.
Mine is too, Alex, and I got my bike in 2018. I haven't taken it in for inspection yet.
So what are we left with then because SRAM is obviously in the Canal for various reasons, should we pull SRAM out of the Canal now that Shimano has been proven to have made faulty cranks, or how do we feel about that?
SRAM's out of the Canal.
Ooh, hot take.
I've been riding gravel this fall, and I use my cyclocross bike and I don't really do cyclocross bikes, so it's really just my gravel bike. And I have SRAM Force 2x on it, and it's just incredibly reliable when it's dirty and unmaintained. And I never clean it. It's got dirt and gunk in there, and it's perfect. When I don't clean it, I don't maintain it, that is when SRAM performs at its best. So I don't know. I think I'm going to pull it out of the Canal.
Yeah. Do you have the E-Tap on it?
Oh, no, come on. I don't. That's a cross bike. I think it's a giant TCX from 2014. It's not particularly beautiful. It's not particularly good. It's got SRAM Force, mechanical on there. I think I'm actually selling it next year and upgrading to a steel Marinoni Sterrato for my gravel bike. but I do not have ETAP. I do not maintain it. I do not clean it. I barely oil it, and that is when it performs at its best.
Fairly confident this bike is what has made you complain about SRAM in the past.
Well, so when I was maintaining it better, I was having a lot of issues with it, but now that I've completely stopped caring and maintaining it, and it lives in my barn at my little farmhouse in the country.
If SRAM performs better with the less amount of maintenance you do, I should get SRAM because I'm very bad at drivetrain maintenance.
Well, also, if you're bad at charging your batteries with SRAM, you can just swap them so you can never like die on a ride. Whereas people with Shimano Ultegra Di2 are just taking the train back all the time.
I'm very bad at charging my batteries. It's happened to me many times that I go on a ride and then, I don't know, 40 kilometers in, I get the dreaded 10% sign on the battery, and then I get stuck on the small ring for the whole way back.
I'm pretty sure Tony and I have thrown electronic shifting in general in the Canal, and if not, doing it right now. And I will say that Shimano's in the Canal, SRAM's still in the Canal. Everybody should just get Campy group sets. That's the solution.
We are really just left with Campagnolo out of the Canal, the Navili in Milan. Okay, so we're actually recording this on October 10, 2023, obviously. On October 11, 2023, there is a release of Panormal Studio Balance Collection, Foundation for Movement, which is basically the running gear. I mean, they posted a picture on Instagram. They did have the Balance collection before. I think they've already done one. It was sort of indoors training. There's like gallery. There's a bunch of lifestyle photos. But we wanted to talk about cycling brands getting into running gear or yoga gear or other active wear. And anyway, that's dropping tomorrow from Panormal Studios. What do we think about that?
I'm not surprised because, as listeners would have heard in our recent interviews with brands like Attacker and Standard and Really Unicorn, I think it's clear that the boom is over and now the other way. So what's the next boom sport, and it might be running because it's a lot more accessible in terms of cost and time commitment. So, Panormal is pivoting and want to appeal to some other people. So it's not surprising. The one thing I would say is there's already some pretty cool running apparel brands out there, is my understanding. I'm not a runner, but you've got your like Satisfy, Tracksmith, which I own a few pieces from because when I discovered them, they were sort of like almost like the Rafa of running to me at the time, like 5 years ago. And I was like, maybe if I buy some really expensive running gear, I'll start running. I mean, I didn't, but I'm pretty on the record of not being a huge P&S fan, so I probably won't like this.
I like the collection, but as long as there's a fine line between running and cycling and not getting into that gray area in between of triathlon. Unless they want to make triathletes look cooler, because
that's impossible.
I don't know. I recently went to an Ironman with my mom, and I saw a lot of just Canal-worthy outfits. So if they want to fix that, that's cool. But if not, I do like the running collection, and it is like a nice sport to do in the off season when it's it's cold and you don't actually want to ride your bike outside.
So I have two comments on this. So like Warren, I agree that I think this is a commercial response to the fact that the cultural relevance of cycling peaked during the pandemic in 2020, 2021. I think even in 22, it was on the decline. In 23, cycling is effectively in the canal at this point. No one cares about cycling anymore. So I think they are pivoting to other endurance sports that are maybe less, time demanding or that people can do with less equipment. So I think that's one thing. The second comment I have on this is on the whole off-bike trend. And this is something that I noticed when we were at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal, where we saw a lot of cyclists just kind of hanging out, watching the amateur crit, then coming back the next day for the pro race, walking around the course, hanging out with other cyclists. And we did not see a ton of off-bike apparel from the major kit brands. If anything, Gorpcore was the biggest off-bike apparel. There was more Arc'teryx and Patagonia and North Face combined than MAP, Panormal, all the big kid brands who do actually produce a fair bit of off-bike apparel. So I do wonder, is the off-bike trend from the kid brands, is that even catching on, or do cyclists just prefer to wear Gorpcore when they're off the bike?
Part of the reason we probably saw a lot of Arc'teryx and North Face, etc., was because it was pouring rain most of the day. But I hear you. I don't know. Who wants to wear like a shirt with just like some logos and stuff on it? That's not very interesting to me when you're off the bike. So maybe that's why it's not picking up. They need to like just start doing design stuff that's kind of beyond that. And I mean, I'm kind of showing my ignorance to a lot of the off the bike stuff that's available.
I'm very tired of Gorpcore as a trend in general. I don't know if it will ever die. I think it'll just mutate. It's one of these things that just refuses to die, just kind of evolves in a hostile environment and gets stronger. And it seems like that's where Gorpcore is going. But I'm very sick of Gorpcore. So if brands want to go ahead with some off the bike stuff that's not Gorpcore, then I'm for it. Okay, all right. Last thing we want to talk about, which is actually a non-event because it was called off and it's not happening, but this is basically my wet dream. So there was speculation that Warren, was it Jumbo was going to merge with Lotto?
It was Jumbo was allegedly going to possibly merge / take over Soudal Quickstep.
Quickstep,
not Lotto.
Yeah, not Lotto. Sorry, Soudal Quickstep. Two big teams, right? So this is like the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys merging pretty much.
But it was less of a merger and more it sounded more like Soudal was going to basically go over to the Jumbo and take a few riders. So it wasn't so much of a merger.
So it was like JP Morgan buying Bear Stearns for $2 a share or something like that.
Sure.
It wasn't a merger of equals. Anyway, what was interesting was there was speculation that Amazon might become the title sponsor of a team. And this was basically my dream of American capitalism, American big corporations, mega capitalization, tech companies coming in and just saving cycling from itself and from its commercial ineptitude and descent into financial ruin. And I thought this was bring a lot of money to the sport and basically make it bigger than the NFL, but then it was ultimately called off and it's not happening. So anyway, very disappointing news. I was all hyped about that. I think, European cycling needs the genius of American capitalism. So I was kind of hoping that there would be a Walmart team, that they would all have Rafa kits, that, there would be a Raytheon, Lockheed Martin team as well. But apparently that's not happening. So very disappointing to me.
I mean, this all unfolded over felt like a few weeks and then it just ended very abruptly. But before that Amazon rumor started, there was just rumor of American company and, there was whispers of Apple and Walmart. And the idea, I was all in for a Walmart team, as you say.
Walmart's a no-brainer. I mean,
yeah, Rafa kits. What is their bike brand?
Yeah, that gravel
Ventum?
bike.
Think of Ventum.
No, Ventum is the one that Lance shows.
Yeah,
for.
but I think that's it starts with a V. Is it Viathlon?
Viathon, I think.
Viathon.
Yeah.
That's it. I think those are the Walton people bikes. Anyway, to me that'd be it's like Decathlon sponsoring a team when they sponsor Cofidis. So I thought a Walmart team would be amazing and probably have hilarious kits. It's kind of sad that we won't see that for now, but I do think with those Walton kids who own Rafa now, their love of cycling, I don't think a Walmart team's out of the question in the future.
What other cool American companies would you like to see sponsor teams?
UPS, just to spite postal service, and they'd be brown kits. They'd be great.
I was gonna say Monsanto, but now they've merged with Bayer, so maybe not. Philip Morris, maybe. Goldman Sachs, Bank of America. I'd love to see it, but anyway, if they're listening to this podcast, at least Walmart, please do become the title sponsor for a team. It's a no-brainer. Lots of cross-selling opportunities. Okay, all right. On that note, we are going to go to the interviews that we recorded at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal. We're just going to play them one after the other. So lots of good comments there. We talked to bike brands, talked to people in the cycling industry. So we're going to listen to the interviews recorded at the Grand Prix. Okay, so we're back out here at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal, and I am currently in the Velo Cartel tent. So our Canadian listeners definitely know Velo Cartel because it's one of the top, I guess, bike shops, clubhouses, online stores in Canada for bike gear, training center as well. They've got some pretty advanced stuff there. But our international listeners probably don't know Bruno Langlois, who is the founder and owner of Velo Cartel. Bruno is a former Canadian national road champ. I guess we'll never be able to take that away from you. You can always wear the Maple Leaf jersey, but he's also the founder of that shop. And just pretty well known in the Canadian cycling community. Bruno, how are you doing?
Pretty good.
So they are here at the Grand Prix Cycliste. They have a tent. They did it in Quebec City as well. Bruno, which one of the two races is the best for you?
I always prefer Quebec for myself. Also, it's my not hometown, but then I live there. But Montreal is more challenging course for me. So I used to be more as a domestic for Montreal, and then Quebec I had could play my card if it's possible. But then so I mean. Both circuits are super nice.
Was it in your last race, in your farewell race, you spent a lot of time in the breakaway, I remember?
Yeah, in Quebec City, I did the early break and I got caught in the last lap, which is was a super nice experience. Probably one of my best races because, in front of my family and friends. So it was a good way to finish my career kind of thing.
So, all right, let's move on to, I guess, the topic of our podcast, which is cycling kit and cycling fashion. What are the cool brands that you like at the moment? What have you seen in the market recently that kind of caught your eye and that you like?
Well, there's a lot of brand popping, but recently we working with Robert and Road from New York, which is super nice because they're close to us. And Max, the founder, is here today. He arrived yesterday. So today we're promoting the Robert and Road brand. We have all the Peace for Medieval collection, and I think it's a new brand that will be cool and also popping in the next few times to be different than all the other brands.
And you guys are a Standard dealer as well, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Are people kind of catching on to that? Because I guess we haven't seen a lot of Standard in North America yet. Warren, our co-host, bought one. He bought the cyclocross model and he's in love with it. We haven't seen a ton of Standard on the roads in North America. Do you think it's just going to blow up given how nice they are?
Yeah, I think it's it's aluminum or steel frame. So a lot of people are all in carbon. But then depending on what's your level of cycling and what's your goal, I think they're super nice bike, good looking. The design and the riding is so smooth. So I think slowly, I think it's going to be a place for this kind of brand.
So we're actually anti-carbon on this podcast. We're carbon phobic. We're steel bike absolutists, extremists. So that's why one of the reasons why we like Standard.
Yeah, I mean, there's a public for that, and there's
By there's a public for that, do you mean old washed-up dads?
No, I mean people that want to be different, and their goals on cycling is not really only focused on performance, but then riding a nice bike, the style of the bike, they're in love with the brand, a little bit like the clothing, So they commit to a community, to a brand, and they are proud to ride the bike,
I like how he diplomatically called me an old washed-up dad. Speaking of, you became a dad recently. How many watts did your FTP go down after becoming a dad?
I don't know. I don't do any FTP tests anymore.
If you don't do it, it doesn't go down, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a little bit down. But that's life.
Well, I guess in 18 years we'll see your son on the popping up on the racing scene.
Yeah, hopefully George likes cycling. Maybe we'll see. But sometimes
he has good genes for cycling. He was blessed with probably a very good cardio from birth. Okay, Bruno Cartel, Bruno Langlois from Velo Cartel. Honestly, if you're in Quebec City, go check out their shop. It's one of the coolest, nicest clubhouses you'll see in Canada. They got a cafe, they got a training center, and check out their website, velocartel.cc, so velocartel.cc. They got some cool stuff there. Bruno, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. Good friend of the podcast.
Thank you, man.
Okay, we're back out here at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal. So now we are in the Argon 1810. So I guess our more astute listeners would know Argon 18, pretty niche brand based in Montreal. They have it on the World Tour. Actually, they are back on the World Tour, I believe, now. Pro Conti, there you go. So I'm in the tent with Marc-Olivier Hardy. So he is the marketing project manager for Argon 18, which is a pretty cool bike brand out of Montreal. Marc-Olivier, welcome to Cycling Fashion Week.
Thank you.
So, all right, I'm going to ask you a few questions for our international listeners who may not be as familiar with Argon 18. Can you describe a little bit the history of the brand? Because you guys actually have a pretty long history at this point.
Yeah, exactly. We're a Canadian-based brand, basically in Montreal, in fact. So this is a home turf for us. We're now in more than 80 countries for selling, so that's great for us. Here in the booth, we have all our road lineup, basically. So we have the Sun Pro, the Krypton, which is the all-road bike, and the Krypton, which is the all-road bike, yeah. And we brought also some gravels, but our focus here is road, obviously.
And you guys are exclusively a carbon bike maker, right? You don't make other materials like aluminum or steel or anything like that?
We do have one aluminum bike right now, so it's a more affordable gravel bike. So first price gravel is aluminum. We can see it in the boots. It's the gray matter. So yeah, first price in the 3,000, so it's way more affordable.
And I said at the outset, you guys were on the World Tour. I think Astana, you were a partner with Astana a few years ago when Hugo Hull was part of that team. So now you guys have a Pro Conti team repping Argon?
Yeah, exactly. We were with Astana, and before that we were with Bora. And after now we are with two Pro Conti. So we have a team Novo Nordisk in Europe, which has a great mission. Novo Nordisk is the pharma. Like they discovered the insulin 103 years ago actually. And all the riders on the team are type 1 diabetics. So for them, it's like to prove to all the diabetics that you can actually do great performances even if you have this condition.
And they also make the Ozempic drug, which is the weight loss drug, which is blowing up in the United States, and therefore their stock price has risen to all-time high. Maybe I'm going to need Ozempic at some point to shed a few pounds. But
second kid coming, there's always a chance that you won't be as lean as Jared from MAP said you were.
It's a good drug for gravel dads. So Marc-Olivier, talk to me. So we're obviously Cycling Fashion Week, so we're much more of an aesthetics-focused podcast here. What are the current trends that you're seeing, like in bike design? And it could be colors, could be geometry, anything.
It's drop C stay. I know you love them, so I'll say that as my first point.
Okay, all right. So he let the cat out of the bag. Let's talk about drop seat stays. We are anti-drop seat stays here on this podcast. We don't think they look good. Why the hell do brands put drop seat stays, and why is the drop getting lower and lower?
It's the comfort. Like even for pro race bikes, you need comfort. It's the biggest outcome, like the feedback we get from riders. They do like 30, 40K, 1,000K a year, and they want comfort on their bike. So yes, the handling is there, the power transfer is there, cornering is strong, but if you do like 8 hours a day, you want to be good on the bike.
So we're actually anti-comfort on this podcast too. We slam the stem as much as possible. It doesn't matter if you wreck your back. And the seat stays can be dropped. So no, you did not convince me, in fact, of the drop.
All right.
So another question I have for you. The new stems. So I guess here you have a few bikes that have slightly more traditional stems, but you have these new kind of integrated stems. Like, explain to me, what's the advantage of those stems? Because I personally find that the older ones look a little bit better, but I guess that these ones have a higher performance. Or explain that to me.
Yeah, performance-wise, it's true that it's more aero to hide the cables, but Actually, it's more for like premium products that it's a look that is more finished, it's cleaner. But now with the Krypton Pro, which is our all-road bike, we have semi-integration because the bike is like done for all-road, for endurance and big rides. You want to be able to repair it everywhere you go. So it's a standard stem, it's a standard handlebar, 27.2 seats, so you can basically every corner shop repair the bike.
It's true that like without the cables, it looks very clean, and you got that aero style as well, which is kind of nice. But yeah, anyway, thanks for enlightening me about that because I never quite got it.
Although you've never been a big fan of seeing no cables, right?
No, I'm pro seeing cables. I want to see all your cables.
All right,
I don't know why. It's
That's an art in itself. A good mechanic that can have your cables just, they're out, they're exposed, but they're just the right length, they have the right bend in it. That's an art that a great mechanic can pull off on sort of a more traditional looking bike. But I'm not against the sort of, especially with the electronic group sets, the fully disappeared cables. I'm not against it.
All right, and I see you guys have, I guess that's the Krypton model there that's in like royal blue at the end. That would look great with a Quebec national champion kit.
Yeah, it would, right?
Yeah, I know. Anyway, that's pretty nice. All right, so Marc-Olivier Hardy from Argon 18. Check them out. What's the website for Argon 18?
Argon18.com.
All right, check them out, argon18.com. Nice Montreal-based brand.
I want to say one thing, which is I actually really like the paint job on the Sum Pro. It's a little reminding me of like bikes from maybe like 10 years ago. Maybe that's not what you're going for, but I actually like it's not just like a huge logo with nothing. It's actually got some nice paint accents.
It's got a bit of that liquid gas Cannondale from
young Peter Sagan, yeah. The young untamed Peter Sagan. All right, Marc-Olivier Hardy from Argon 18. Check them out, argon18.com. Great bike brand from Montreal. They're taking over the world slowly. Thank you, Marc-Olivier.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now in the Specialized tent. So probably the biggest brand that we've ever spoken to, right? We usually talk to smaller niche brands, but Specialized, I think that would be the biggest brand that we've ever spoken to. We're here with Dominique Desjardins, who's a sales rep for Specialized. And I guess we're going to talk about the lineup and Specialized. We don't talk too much about Specialized on the podcast, but we're currently in the tent and they have a pretty cool display of immaculate white shoes right in front of us, which I'm always a fan of, but also the SL8, which is right there. Dominique, thanks for having us.
Hey guys, how are you?
All right, so tell us about kind of the direction that Specialized is taking in terms of design, in terms of colorways, any cool new models that we should know about with Specialized.
Well, right now, I mean, when we're looking at the SL8, it's a good continuation of the SL7. We changed a lot of things. First thing, I mean, the aerodynamic, especially the front end, and the weight, again, that a lot of guys were talking about. And the other thing concerning the colors, I must say in Canada, we've been conservative a lot, but finally, how can I say, we kind of changed our lineup for 24 with the SL8, and we brought up some pretty cool colors that were out there. So yeah, this is where we're heading right now.
Can I ride this bike if I'm a washed up dad and my FTP is under 260 watts? Will Specialized allow me to ride it?
Yeah, of course, because with the speed sniffer, I think that first of all, a dad like you will go way faster. And the other thing, of course, with the new bottom bracket we have, your watts will go through the roof, my friend.
I mean, I don't know, Alex. Your FTP, I thought it was like 350. So can you tell us a bit about the speed sniffer? Because for our listeners that don't know, it's designed on the head tube of the new SL8, and it's definitely distinctive. Can you tell us a bit about the reason for that? And if you know anything about why it's called Speed Sniffer, we'd love to know.
Well, yeah, it's a pretty good name that a lot of people, were kind of laughing at the beginning, but good comments, bad comments, at the end, we're looking at the attention of that bike right now. It's pretty awesome, and people that were kind of a bit laughing, and how can I say, it's right now we're kind of ahead of the curve, I can say. And the other thing, concerning the Speed Sniffer, the new nose cone that we have, all the tests we did in the wind tunnel, it came from there. I mean, and of course with the aero bar that we have. So all the aerodynamic comes from the front end, goes to the back. And this is why we put a lot of effort to develop a new nose cone, more profile, a little bit wider. But when you look at airplanes, F1 racing, front end is super important. That is why we have that fantastic and really popular speed sniffer.
So I guess I'm really interested. So I'm in the tent here. I'm looking at your lineup of bikes. So there is that SL8 here. It's a lavender paint job with orange splatter paint in front of it. So really distinctive. Then in the back of it, there's like a Ferrari red speed machine. Then there's a sort of gold yellow. And then there's gray in the back. Is the era of the matte black bike dead? Is it finally over?
No, I shouldn't.
It'll never go away.
Never go away. But that's a good question, guys, because we released the black edition, and we've had, but it's not black, matte. It comes with luster. It's kind of
shiny black, glossy.
Thank you. Yeah. But we've had so much demand about that frame, but it's a limited edition. But, when you look at all those cool colors, I think that even you guys think it's pretty cool. They're outstanding, but still the black, everybody's asking about the black. So, yeah, it won't go away.
Okay, because I like the bright colors personally, but yeah.
I just want to get away from the bikes and talk about the shoes, because I feel like I haven't owned Specialized shoes, but I feel like Specialized never misses on their shoes. The style of their shoes are always right. They're always, they do a good job with the laces. We know Warren's recently, with all his feet trouble, switched to laces to deal with his wide feet. But, always doing double boa, always releasing with a nice, crisp white. Who's the shoe designer? Why are the shoes always hitting? Why are they always right?
Well, I was just going to quickly add to that. I recently bought a pair of the S-Works Torch lace-up in white. And you wouldn't know this, but I've been through almost every shoe brand there is, and finally these shoes are comfortable.
So, and he loves to talk about his feet.
Yes, I talk about my weird feet. Anyway, I just wanted to briefly mention.
Listeners know that the adventure of Warren's shoe search has been far and wide. He's gone from every brand. He has no price point too high to figure out what works for him, and so he's recently got he's recently gone to laces. Despite our need for double boa, that's a requirement on the podcast, is double boa. But it seems to have worked. But I just like the aesthetic of the Specialized shoe.
Guys, it's a pretty good point, talking about especially your feet.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty cool to hear. But, it's a good point, guys, because, we're a group here. I've been at Specialized for 15 years. And, I think we're the only brand right now. We've been, and we're still the only brand that a lot of pros are riding our shoes, even if they're sponsored by other equipment brands, other bike brands, helmet brands.
Do they hide the logo?
Some of them, yes. And I would say if I would have a podcast, I would call out those guys. And I sometimes do on my personal Instagram. I say, don't be a shy. Show the S, my friend. But, one of the question is, it's kind of classic. We've had some, how can I say, aesthetics. It was more personalized in the previous years. But why is it super popular? It's because of the comfort. And I think each of you guys mentioned about the comfort, because don't forget, guys, we all know it's a North American brand. And, it's not, our shoes is not is not a mold based on Euro fit, if I can say. And that's why I think even the Euro guys really like our fit, because our fit, that's one of the things that's really exceptional is the fit. And after that, aesthetics, of course.
Yeah, speaking of the Euro fit, like I've always admired CD shoes, but they're so damn narrow that no one can wear them. Okay, well, Dominique Desjardins from Specialized, thanks a lot for your time. This was a great kind of overview of what Specialized is doing right now. We don't talk about Specialized a lot on the podcast, but I think this was a great introduction. So thanks very much, and enjoy the rest of Grand Prix weekend here.
Merci les gars, thank you.
Okay, we're again at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal. This time we found him in the Velo Cartel tent as we were walking by. He was wearing beautiful Central Park Cycling Club sweatshirt, forest green, my favorite color. Max Davis from New York City brand Rubber and Road. Max is in Montreal for the Grand Prix. Max, welcome to Cycling Fashion Week.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
What are you doing in Montreal? Are you doing both Grand Prix, Quebec City, and Montreal, or just Montreal?
This time around, just Montreal. We're happy to be here to support the community in Montreal, and with our friends at Velo Cartel, it's a privilege for us to be up here and enjoy this race and amazing cycling community here.
So we talked about you guys on the podcast, I'm going to say like 4 episodes ago, maybe 5 episodes ago, when you dropped the Central Park Cycling Club kit, which we actually reviewed. We thought it was pretty nice. I'm partial to the color. I like it. Love the gold on it.
Matching bibs.
Yeah, we wanted matching bibs. So you need to make green bibs to go with it.
We're definitely considering that.
We're big on the one color, like all white as well. That's a little bit bold, but you got to look into that. So, Max, talk to us.
Pretty bold brand, so.
Okay, that would work. Talk to us about the history of Rubber and Road, what you guys are doing. So it's you, Max Davis, and your partner, Gil Lavi. Very kind of New York City and your brand ethos. I think your shop is in Midtown. So talk to us about your history, what you guys do.
Yeah, we're independently owned boutique brand based in Manhattan, as you mentioned. We have a store in Hell's Kitchen, just 5 minutes from Central Park and Times Square. And our design studio is upstairs. That's where we design, prototype, and do the first renders of most of our apparel. And yeah, we try to focus on utilizing fabric millers that are doing things ethically and sustainably, and all of our apparel is produced in limited quantities, really trying to avoid overproduction and produce things that are really inspired by New York City and the cycling community there, and all of the art and philosophy that we appreciate from around the world.
Is Quebec your first international foray, or have you gone into other markets at this point?
We do have some presence around the world. I mean, we ship globally through our website. In terms of retailers, we have partners, of course, here in Quebec, also in Dubai and Seoul, South Korea. So it's been very gratifying to see people really appreciate what we're doing and believe in the ethos of the brand. And so we have been seeing tremendous growth from around the world. We have a lot of friends in Europe, and yeah, it's just amazing to meet and mingle with people from different parts of the world that are still united through the cycling community.
What's the riding like in Hell's Kitchen?
The riding in New York City, it's actually really nice. Obviously, we ride in Central Park quite a bit. That's kind of our main training ground, and that's where we actually test a lot of the products that we're working on. Kind of hence the Central Park Cycling Club is a nod to that and an homage to the park that we ride in every day. And then, yeah, there's great riding around the city, outside the city limits. We have some good climbing and a lot of great gravel riding as well.
People may not know that, but the Mount Royal Park in which we are at the moment was actually designed by the same architect as Central Park, Frederick Law Olmsted. So
there you go.
A little bit of geographical knowledge for our listeners. So Tony knew it because Tony knows everything. All right, Max, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because our listeners would crucify me if I didn't ask you to comment on the controversy that happened a few months ago about you guys and the group rides in New York City. Now, the dust has settled a little bit. We didn't really want to weigh in on it at that time. The dust has settled a little bit. So I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. So do you care to comment about that at all?
Sure. We're an independent niche brand. We're trying our best to grow and create a positive impact on the people around us. Over the years, we've led hundreds of rides, and we've had, overwhelmingly positive interactions with the vast majority of people around us. There was one incident where what started as a suggestion to somebody to hopefully support our brand, unfortunately snowballed a bit, and I think the internet took over in some ways. But we're humans, and we make mistakes. The way that it was handled was regretful, but, we tried to keep improving and learning every day, and yeah. And,
okay. appreciate you kind of commenting on it, because when we reviewed the kit initially, a lot of people dropped in the comments, talked about it. We wanted to stay out of it now, but the dust has settled. You guys are in Montreal, so thought it would be a good chance to ask you to comment on it. All right, Max Davis, Rubber and Road, check them out. So they're at Velo Cartel in Canada. What's your website if we want to look you up on the internet?
rubberandroad.com and at Rubber and Road on social media.
Cool. Thank you, Max, for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Enjoy the weekend as well.
Okay, so we're at here in the VIP tent, and I just ran into a newly retired pro, I guess, but it's been about a year that you've been retired.
12 months, day by day.
12 months? Because you retired at the last Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal. So Antoine Duchesne, who for many years was a pro on the FDJ cycling team. So how many years were you with FDJ?
5 years.
And you were also with another team before that, right?
Yeah, Europe car before.
So French teams. Yeah. So already there, spent quite a lot of time on the world tour. And Antoine is newly retired. So how's retired life? How are you enjoying it?
It's been quiet. I took a year off completely, took care of my kid, gardening, and I was like a retired. I have all my neighbors are retired, and I had their lifestyle of the 76 years old people walking and taking care of my baby. It's kind of how my year looked like.
A young retired. Where do you live now?
I still live in the Alps, but we're coming back in Quebec soon.
Are you riding your bike much?
Not much. I rode it about a dozen times this year, 15 times top.
Have you measured your FTP this year?
Oh my God. I don't have any more Garmin. I threw them away. No watch, nothing. I go out and I come back when I'm tired. I push fast when I feel like it, and that's it.
That's good. That's how it should be. So you rode for Europe Car and you rode with FDJ. Which of the two teams had the best looking kit in your opinion?
FDJ. FDJ, I liked it better.
Did you rock the white bibs for FDJ?
No, the year I got in, they stopped and we were fully blue by then. They stopped to mix the white bibs.
I'm a big fan of the FDJ white bibs back in the day. Who do you think on the team would have had the most panache wearing them? Would have been you, Thibaut Pinot, Arnaud Desmar?
It depends on the heat.
You got to be careful because you can show a little bit too much with the white bibs. What was it like riding for Marc Madiot? Did he ever shout at you from the car?
Just if there was a camera on it.
He did for show. All right, well, Antoine, enjoy retired life and have a good move back home to Quebec. And thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're in the official race car at the base of Camillien Oude, the hardest climb in the world. You can hear the race radio here. We're in Camillien Oude. The fans are on the side of the road. So we're with our driver, Stéphane. We're in a BMW X3 going up Camillien Oude. Stéphane, welcome to Cycling Fashion Week.
Good afternoon.
What's it like being a driver on those bike races? Like I always watch the Tour, the Vuelta, the Giro, and I'm amazed at how people avoid accidents because they're driving so close to each other. Like, is it the same here in Montreal, or is it a little bit more spaced out?
It's pretty much the same, I'd have to say. It's controlled chaos.
So, is this your first year doing this, or you've been doing this for a few years?
I've been doing this for a few years.
So you know what you're doing. This is a BMW X3. Thoughts on the BMW X3?
I'm not an SUV man, to be honest with you, and it's not the greatest cars to have in races, especially these kind of races.
Yeah, maybe we need a sportier ride. Guys, any impressions from the car?
It's very nice. Very lots of leather. Love the leather.
I just love the getting in the car gets you up close and personal with the riders, and we just passed a dropped Trek Lidl rider, and getting to see that kit up close, I love it. I think it's actually the best kit in the Pro Peloton. It's unique, it's interesting, it stands out. So I like getting just past the guys who are dropped, and they're going a bit slow, and you get a real good view of the kits.
Now we're at the top of Camillien Oude, and the pros are definitely getting a taste of Montreal pavement with potholes and very bad quality pavement. We're in the clouds too. It's very kind of cloudy day today, so interesting.
Very generous to say they're called roads.
Yeah, it looks, I always say, like, Montreal roads look like probably the average Bosnian road after the Civil War in Yugoslavia in the 1990s. So
I'll definitely concur with that.
Hey, what are you doing? I don't know, I'm just fucking tossing bikes in the river, bro.
all right, so thank you to Bruno, thank you to Argon 18 Specialized Rubber and Road for the interviews at the Grand Prix. So now we're gonna do our segment Into the Canal, where we throw something we don't like from the world of cycling or cycling fashion into Montreal's La Chine Canal. Alternatively, we could have a Camillien, which is something that we want to congratulate or commend or give a shout out to, something that we like. So why don't we start this week with Skyler?
I think going on off the topic of the Shimano cranks, I think I'm going to Canal anyone who resells one of the cranks that's been recalled for a ridiculous price. Honestly, and I think anything, I don't like, what do you think is like the benchmark of a ridiculous price?
For just a crank?
For a crank that's within like the series that's being recalled. Like, it may be working perfectly fine.
Any amount of money.
Yeah, right? And I feel like I've seen so many on Marketplace and like the Facebook buy and sell groups. And I'm like, we all know what could happen to that.
I guess you could argue that if you buy it, you could take it to a mechanic, and I don't think you need proof of purchase for this recall. So I think you would get a replacement crank out of it.
Oh my God. On the Toronto Road /CX bike classifieds, I'm actually trying to find it right now as I'm speaking. But there was one guy, literally the day that they announced the recall, there is one guy who put up a Dura-Ace crank on literally for retail almost on the website, on the classifieds group on Facebook, and he got destroyed in the comments. And I actually went in there and commented myself, and people were like, you are literally a scumbag, like putting out a newly recalled crank for sale. I don't know if the price was that bad, to be honest. I don't recall the price, but just the idea that you would sell this, and the guy was like totally innocent, like he was acting like he didn't know and everything. Anyway, that was pretty crazy. But I'm not to brag, I'm a keen observer of the secondhand market for bike parts, kit, bicycles. That market is just collapsing right now. I mean, there's no other way to put it. There's been a complete crash. The COVID cyclists are flooding the market with what they bought in 2020, 2021. So, I mean, good luck trying to sell a recalled crank.
Yeah, I'm actually going to add to my Canal. We're just going with a full buy and sell theme right now. People who are trying to resell the Wahoo kickers, they're selling brand new right now for $600. I've seen so many posted on Facebook Marketplace that are over $600. And all the comments are like, this is $600 brand new. So I should be seeing these posted for like $300. I don't want your shitty Wahoo kicker core that you sweat all over that they're not going to warranty if you break it, because that's a different Canal for another day.
I'd be curious to hear from our listeners if other buy and sell groups around the world are having the same thing. I would even encourage our listeners to join the Toronto Road and CX Classifieds group, because there are some pretty funny comments in there on a lot of the crazy listings. And I'm curious if other Facebook groups, local Facebook groups like that, have similar comments. Also, people clearly not in Toronto join that group constantly, both from like Quebec or Ottawa, which is okay, maybe reasonable, but also you get Vancouver, which is on the other side of Canada, for those that don't know. To me, that's against the spirit of a local buy and sell group.
But I appreciate that it's pretty well policed by the members. Like when when the members smell bullshit, they will go in the comments.
Yeah.
And we'll try to call out people.
I feel like I need to credit myself, give a chameleon to myself. When I sold my Ibis, I listed it at a price of, I think, $23.50 Canadian. It retails for $3,000 Canadian new, just the frame. And I didn't get a single comment criticizing my price. So credit to me.
But just, that's a great example that you gave, Skyler, like trainers, right? A few years ago, my God, like trainers were going for an insane price. They were hard to get at retail. And in some cases, I think there was a short period of time that they were selling above retail due to supply chain difficulties. But now it's just people realize that they don't have space in their tiny condos for trainers. It sucks, using a home trainer, and they're just dumping them on the market. And was it the Elite Sweeto or something that people were just dumping those for like $100 now? It's like, take it off my hands pretty much. So really a big reversal of fortune in the cycling market over the last few years. Okay, I'm going to do my Canal this week. It's actually a Camélien, and I believe that it's something that I canaled in the past, and I've had a bit of a change of mind on this, and I am going to pull it out of the Canal. So I think it might be the first time I pull something out of the Canal. I believe that in one of our early episodes, I canaled Shimano 105. And today I am going to pull Shimano 105 out of the Canal. I'm going to give it a Camélien. And I've thought long and hard about this, and I think this is the correct take. And let me explain it. So first of all, we've just experienced the Shimano recall in the last few weeks, which was, I think, traumatizing for a lot of people who, bet the farm on Shimano, put all their eggs in the Shimano basket, thinking that they were dodging SRAM mechanical issues. Now they're faced with a Shimano recall, but a Shimano recall that's really concentrated on the upper echelons of Shimano group sets, namely Ultegra and Dura-Ace. Shimano 105 dodged the Shimano recall. So in a way, it's the Toyota of it's the Toyota of group sets. It's the reliable. It's the Subaru of group sets recently. It's the Subaru Outback of group sets. It is dodging the recalls. It's very strong mechanically. It's very functional. You can rely on it. And the other element of Shimano 105 that I think you have to give a Camélien to is Shimano 105 the new flex. Is Shimano 105 stealth wealth in a way, right? If you're nouveau riche, haven't had money for that long, people are buying the SRAM Red E-Tap, the Porsche, the Ferrari of group sets. But people who are old money, who've been in the game for a long time, generational wealth, don't want to be out there flashy with the big logos. What are they riding? They ride Shimano 105. It looks just the same. The crank is just as ugly as the Ultegra. It probably performs better. It doesn't get recalled, and you don't get identified like a rich douchebag right away. It's discreet. It's very old money. So Shimano 105, I think, is stealth wealth. Now, this take might have to do with the fact that I recently swapped an old group set from the early 2000s on my Trek US Postal for a more modern group set, and that I didn't really want to pay for Dura-Ace, so I got Shimano 105. This might have to do with why this take is being dropped on today's podcast, but I feel strongly about it, and I'm giving a Camélien to Shimano 105.
I will buy that 105 Di2 as stealth wealth. I don't know if I'll buy 105 normal mechanical is stealth wealth. I say that because I think 105 Di2 is still pretty expensive, but it's, from my understanding, is basically as good as Ultegra Di2. So I'll agree with you there. I think Tony and I have been on the record and even argued with you when you threw 105 in the Canal that 105 was like the solid sort of working class group set that's basically a generation ago's, Ultegra or Dura-Ace. And I'll stand by that. I do think 105 is good. I would happily get 105 on another bike. So for me, it's always been out of the Canal. So I embrace it.
Yeah, I agree. I had a Tiagra crank on my Cervelo before I got my team bike. So 105 is not above me or below me. Sorry. It was above me.
I don't know if I would go so far as to say that Tiagra is stealth wealth. I think Tiagra is like, when a certain type of fashion becomes ironic later, and the meta people from another generation kind of adopt it in an ironic way. I think Tiagra will probably undergo that fate later.
Tiagra's gone, though. It's all being replaced by Qs from Shimano.
I think that it's dumb that they're changing the names, because what made Shimano iconic was the fact that, like Rolex, their lineup hasn't changed in like 50 years. It's Sora, Tiagra, 105, Ultegra, Dries, like people can identify it. It's iconic.
Not anymore.
And changing the names every 5 years just, removes the iconic nature from it. Okay, Warren, what do you got in the Canal this week?
Skyler kind of spoiled a little bit off the top of the show when we were talking about cyclocross season. Skyler was a sort of a late in the game replacement for Tony this week as he's out sick. I had already written in our show notes doc that I was going to give Skyler a chameleon for going over the bars at Cross last week at our local cross clinic and race during the warm-up. Was that last week or was it 2 weeks ago? I don't even remember.
2 weeks ago.
Oh, 2 weeks ago. Skyler attempted to hop uphill barrier.
Uphill barrier, let's be clear.
Yeah, sorry. And that's respect. Like, that's why I'm going to give you a chameleon for one, attempting to hop an uphill barrier, and two, for doing the most perfect face plant I think I've ever seen in my life. It was perfect comedic timing. And somebody it was Italian Alex actually managed to get a photo of it at the exact right moment. So we'll definitely have to put that on Instagram. The real chameleon is just for even attempting to hop barriers, because as a masters racer myself, I don't even bother.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Warren. I'm a sucker to peer pressure.
And I will add that anyone who races cyclocross knows that you really only get better by full commitment to the more technical aspects, whether it's, leaning into turns, sending it on descents, using as little brake as possible. And the commitment to trying to hop the barrier was full. So
yeah,
that's how next time you'll probably do it. It was very hard to hop. I didn't see, I don't know if I saw anyone hop it during the race itself. So
thank you. My back felt that for a week.
Okay, that's it for another episode of Cycling Fashion Week. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Skyler. Thank you to all the good people that we interviewed at the Grand Prix Cycliste de Montréal, including Bruno Langlois, Marc-Olivier Hardy, Dominique Desjardins, Max Davis. Who else did we interview? I think that's about it. Thank you all. You were great. Great to interview. Hope to see you next year at the race. Thank you again. Thank you, Warren. Thank you, Skyler. And hopefully Tony will recover from his cold that he has at the moment, and we'll be back in a few weeks with more Cycling Fashion Week content.
I want to do a little business at the very end. Also, thank you to the GP of Montreal organizers for once again having us.
And for putting together a great event that is becoming, I think, a monument. I think we can say it.
Definitely. It's definitely a monument, for sure.